Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we cover all the home teams. We'll talk some Saints, we'll talk LSU, we'll talk Tulane Green Wave. And joining us tonight, breaks it down like nobody else, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. Sean, how you doing tonight? Glad to have you back on the show.
Great to be back. It's football season. The days are kind of running together, but we're here.
Yeah, as we were teasing the last time you were on, it will be like late February before you'll have your next time off. So I'm glad you enjoyed your vacation. Back to the grind. Speaking of the grind, if you're not setting your DVR every single night, you're not getting really great programming on the Saints. Fox 8 has you covered constantly. Tell us about all you guys got going on.
You got time? Because it's quite a few.
That's why I brought you on by yourself tonight.
Well, first off, download the Final Play app. All of our web work and video work is on there. We've been doing a lot of the plays of the day, a lot of different things from Saints practice. Mondays, we do our Black and Gold review show. Deuce McAllister is with Juan Kincaid and myself. And once the regular season starts, tune in to Fox 8 because every single night at 10:30, some form of football is going to be on the air. They've got the Black and Gold review. We have our game plan show. We have Thursday night football. We have Fox 8 football Friday. On Sundays, we have the Final Play. We don't have any 10:30 show on Saturday. I believe that's the only night. But tune in because we're going to have a lot of football. If you like football, Fox 8 is a spot for you.
But you got college football on Saturday.
And college football as well.
Sometimes you're doing West Coast games, and
exactly.
it kind of bleeds in.
And it bleeds into our newscast.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's a lot of football on Fox 8.
And, of course, your award-winning blog.
After further review, blog on fox8live.com, and, of course, download the Final Play app.
There you go. Let's talk some Saints first. Concerned about how the first team performed against Jacksonville?
I thought it was the perfect first preseason game. They got some stuff accomplished, but it was a good reset button because the energy was good all through the first 12, 13 practices of camp. I mean, you never really had a lull in any day. And you always get it in training camp. There's some days where you don't have it, and it hadn't happened really through the first 12 or 13 days. Turns out it happened in the first preseason game. Humidity was there, and you played a very physical team. I know some people had kind of pointed to the tackling. That's such a catch-22. It's a fine line you walk, but Jacksonville does not walk the fine line. They do padded practices and they go live. They've done the most of any team in the NFL, and I think that showed. So I felt like it was a pretty good reset button. There were times where they looked a little bit like, okay, wow, it started. Let's buckle down here. I guess that was a little disappointing, but overall, I felt like first preseason game, I've seen far worse. Obviously, I've seen better, but you don't want to be peaking right now. So I felt like it was a pretty good reset button. It kind of reset the energy. It's always hard to get back, I know even from covering this team, to get back to practice mode after you've had that first game. Because it's like, wow, you've had the high of a game to get back to the lull and the grind of practicing. But that gave them a perfect reset button, a reset chance. So I still like where they're at right now. I really do.
Sean, you mentioned Jacksonville, full pads. Tackling as well?
They've had the most padded practices of any team.
Right.
It's a very physical team. That's Doug Marone's
yeah.
thing. I can't say if it's live tackling every single one of those practices, but I do know as far as the reputation around the league, that is the most physical camp in the NFL.
And the reason why I ask is because we've had this discussion before on and off the air. The hardening of the body, getting it ready for the NFL regular season. whether it is the ability to be able to take the pounding or give the pounding. And then, of course, the technique in terms of, again, being fundamentally sound in terms of tackling. There's only so much you can do with a dummy and a cushion falling on that. The new collective bargaining agreement really kind of leans toward, again, player safety, and rightly so. But again, it is football. It is a contact sport. And again, with only 4 preseason games, it's going to take a team a little while to kind of get acclimated to, again, the pounding you take in football, but also, again, the fundamentals of hitting. And more importantly, if you're on the offensive side, the technique as well to battle off those guys that are coming at you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Saints didn't have a single live tackling day before the first preseason game. I don't know how many Jacksonville had, but like I said, I do know it's the most physical camp in the NFL. It's such a fine line because I was there in West Virginia when Sheldon Rankins broke his leg, and they were going full live. So I was there and I saw it. You definitely don't want to lose anybody. You definitely don't want to lose them in training camp to your own guys, against your own guys. So I feel like the pace has been pretty good, and I feel like Peyton has trust with this team, so I think he's willing to kind of be a little more patient when it comes to tackling. I think they had their first tackling period. They had a goal line period, the second practice after that first preseason game. So, I'm okay with where they're at right now when it comes to tackling, but I can understand why, because it showed up so much, especially on that first drive. It was 15 plays, Jacksonville's first drive, and it was a long one. They only had 2 drives in the whole first quarter. So I understand the situation, but I also understand the predicament you're in as a coaching staff. It's a hard balance to find.
Yes.
It's one of those things, do you go in and say, we're going to be all physical, or we're going to be we're going to toe the line? I think Jacksonville has picked, we're going to be all physical and risk whatever we got to risk. Whereas the Saints, they've kind of toed that line a little bit because they've had an injury history.
It's interesting you talk about trust with Sean Payton. I could see him trusting the veteran teams of the past with all the veterans, guys that have been in the system for a while. This is a very, very young team.
Young, but experienced. I mean, that rookie class is all back.
Yeah.
And there's a full head of trust with those guys. You have a linebacker core that's, I guess, they're all under, other than Craig Robertson, I think they're all under 30. So I guess technically they're young, but they got a lot of experience.
Yes.
And a lot of guys got a lot of playing time last year. So it's pretty obvious when you watch Sean Payton at practice that there is a trust factor there, regardless of the age. And I do think this is a locker room that's got a pretty good mix of sprinkled in veterans with young players, but young players with experience. That's why I like where this team's at right now.
You always try to key in on the players that flash, but then, if you're watching it closely, you also have to be able to know when those players are flashing and who they're flashing against. 3 guys really stood out toward the end of the game. Jaron Elliott, Devo Lawrence, Taylor Stallworth, all had really good outings against Jacksonville's, and I'm going to say it, scrubs. How have they performed in camp? What we saw from them at the end of the Jacksonville game, is that what you've been seeing on a day-in, day-out basis and when it comes to camp and their performance?
Those 3 in particular, honestly, I have not. Hadn't really seen any of those guys flash in camp up to that point. A few moments here and there, and I was big on Taylor Stallworth because of his body type. Can be that run-stuffing D-tackle, but I think Jay Bromley has kind of moved to that forefront. I did a roster projection right after the game. I didn't have any of those guys on it because I got to see more of it. Now, what they did do was probably earn a few more reps, and they probably got some confidence now going forward that they are able to make plays when given the opportunity, regardless of who you're playing up against. But I think in this case, with those 3 guys you mentioned, they at least earned themselves some more reps, but I'm not ready to say any one of those guys are on the roster.
Especially when it comes to Elliott. Where do you find a spot for him?
He's kind of a tweener. Is he a pass rusher? Is he a stand-up guy? Is he a Sam? Is he a weak side? He's a little bit of a tweener. I don't know when it comes to Elliott. That's why if he keeps showing up, then you got to figure it out. But right now, I think he's on the outside looking in.
Marcus Davenport, groin injury, missing some very, very valuable time right now. A lot of people are questioning the price paid for him, feeling that a guy that you put up multiple number 1 picks for should be an instant impact player. Some have now, again, maybe amped back their expectations of Davenport. Rightly so?
We just haven't seen much of him since he had the muscle pull or whatever the injury was. He was back out there doing some work yesterday. Coincidentally, with the injury scare of Alex Okafor, it was the first thing we all thought of was, okay, Davenport's got to get ready. When he was healthy, he had ways to go. So this injury kind of set him back in terms of reps. He has to go up against Teron Armstead every day in practice. He has got to get better at going up against NFL linemen, because what he faced at UTSA was not NFL linemen.
True.
So I think, is it disappointing? He got hurt. I don't know. Who knows where he would be if he'd have practiced the last 8 or 9 practices. But I will say this. At this point last year, the jury was still out on Marshawn Lattimore.
Yes, it was.
He has time. I know it seems that we live in this instant gratification world, and we all kind of have that recency syndrome, but I think there's still time. So by no means do you throw the book out and say, okay, he's not going to be ready. But I do think for his position and what they want him to do and how they want him to contribute, he's got to get on the field, get some meaningful practice reps and game reps against some NFL linemen.
Think he'd be a situational player this year?
I think that's the start. And you can be an impact player,
Oh,
if you're a
absolutely.
situation player. You're going to be on the field a lot.
Right.
And as the season goes on, gain more trust, make more plays, get more playing time. This happens. We've watched it time and time again with players. They gain confidence. They figure out what they're doing. So, yeah, I think all those things. I think right now that's your best bet, because it's not even close. Okafor's had a tremendous camp. I know he got hurt, and thankfully they dodged that bullet. But his recovery, phenomenal. And his two-way run versus pass at that weak side, great. So it's not even – I thought that would be a bigger battle. It has not been.
Take us back to what happened with Alex Okafor.
Been a long time since I've seen a hush, a silence, go over a practice like that. We were all kind of chit-chatting off to the side, and we kind of noticed the play and then kind of look, and then boom, we look down, and the entire team, and Drew Brees is right in front of him, on one knee, because they knew who it was, and it was Alex Okafor on the ground, and it looked terrible. It really did. And he got up, he kind of limped off. It looked like he kind of threw his mouthpiece in frustration, and I said, he ruptures other Achilles. I mean, because that's always the thing, right?
Absolutely.
When you repair an Achilles, it's the other one you have to worry about.
Overcompensation.
He goes, somehow he gets, he didn't have to be helped off or anything. He was able to get off, but was definitely limping. But we find out it's a bone bruise ankle sprain, which, I mean, the way it looked versus what it is now, like, he does not need to see the field at all the rest of the preseason, maybe not even week 1 or week 2. But I think that's a major bullet dodge, because it looked really bad at practice yesterday.
With that said, Trey Henderson is going to be counted on much more this season. Talk about his maturation process.
He's quietly had a good camp, a really good camp. I think he's got more of a burst than people realize, and he's also able to hold at the point of attack, so he can play the strong side. He can play on the field with Cam. He can back up Cam. And because he's got a decent first step, he can also play the weak side, which is what he did when Okafor went down. He slid into that weak side role. So Hendrickson is a guy that doesn't say much, but Sean Payton says that you feel him. He's got a presence, a little chippy, a little feisty. I like that, Florida Atlantic. So I think that's a guy that quietly, from last year's draft class, he was around, he flashed a little bit, but could really see a big sort of jump in year 2.
We were talking about off the air, and it's so true. Even trying to do a radio show talking about the Saints right now is tough, because most of the positions are solidified. I mean, again, what you're looking now is guys that are going to back up, guys that are going to have to step in if there's an injury. So I'll ask you to handicap some of the position battles. Talk about that pass rush defensive end / outside linebacker position opposite Cam Jordan. Who do you think ultimately ends up in that spot?
I think my latest projection, I'm going to stick with this.
Sure.
I had Cam, I had Okafor, and I'm still going to stick with that, depending on, now his injury will muddle things a little bit. I had Trey Hendrickson, Marcus Davenport, and my 5th guy was Mitchell Lavin.
I like him.
Who, how many times did 70 show up on a game? I mean, that's
Even
been
last
last year too.
Yeah.
So he's a guy, he's a little injury prone, which is frustrating, because he always seems to have a nick or a bruise. But he's a guy that can also kick inside, play the 3 technique. He can get over a center if you want him to. I don't know if he's got the body type for that, but he's willing to do that.
Yes.
So a guy like Al-Karim Mohammed, to me, has got to raise his play, because I didn't think he had a good game.
He's got practice
in
squad
the first preseason. I think he's got practice squad
availability,
time.
right?
So that's the way I see it right now. That edge pass rusher, and I'm comfortable with that. I mean, now the injury could force you to do some other things. Maybe a George Johnson can slide his way on, We'll see, but right now that's kind of where I feel the Saints stand with at the defensive end position.
We've heard a lot about Onyemata and also Rankin's, their battle. Talk about a little bit about what that's going on, and then if you would kind of morph into what's going to happen on the inside of the defensive line.
Yeah, they've kind of traded reps, and if I had to tally, I'd say Onyemata's probably got the majority of the first-team reps over Rankins, which is a little surprising. I think they're better when they're on the field at the same time. I think Onyemata has the body type to be a run stuffer as well as a kind of get up the field pass rushing D tackle. I think Sheldon Rankins is a quick first step guy that can play the 3-tech and get upfield. It's been a good battle. You talk to the linemen, they say Rankins has been unblockable, but Onyemata's got a lot more of the reps. So I think it's a good situation to have. And I think depending on numbers, how they all shake out, because Lavin can play both positions, I think you have Rankins, I think you have Onyemata, I think you have Davison. And right now, I think the guy is Jay Bromley. I think that's the guy that's filled into the fourth defensive
3 or 4 times tonight. Why?
He's just he shows up. He gets his hands up on passes. He's able to kind of hold the point of attack. I think he's a solid rotational guy. Got a little bit of a veteran presence to him. So I think he's a guy that can that to me, if it were happening right now, would earn a spot on this roster.
One of the deepest positions and interchangeable this year seems to be a linebacker. Sean, I can remember us talking on this show, on the radio show a few years ago. Literally plotting horses. Guys that didn't have a tremendous amount of speed, couldn't go sideline to sideline, guys that couldn't stop the run. They have transformed this linebacking core. I don't want to go out on the limb here, but the Dome Patrol is the best linebacking core in the history of the NFL. But this is a pretty good linebacking core they got right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not who, it's where.
Yeah.
Because they're all over the field playing different positions. I know what I see and what I would do if it were me, but the coaches are kind of flexing. They're flexing these players out. So, one day it's Manti Te'o playing the mic. The next it's Anzalone. Then it's Klein. Then it's Davis. Robertson can play that role. I think your two best cover linebackers are Anzalone and Davis. As I said before, a linebacker's natural coverage ability comes from routes that kind of develop in front of them.
Yes.
A cross, a hook, a flat. But when Anzalone and Davis's case, you see them tracking balls behind them, a corner route, whatever, a seam route, whatever the case may be. Hard to find those guys. I mean, it's the body type, what you have to do on a certain play. And both of those guys are bigger linebackers. I mean, Davis is he's a thumper. He looks like a thumper, but he can also cover and run. So I still think I like Davis as the Mike, and AJ Klein to me is better as a Sam because he can hold up against the run. He's also a pretty good blitzer. And then Stupar is a nice special teams guy that can also play in coverage as well. He's a better pass coverage linebacker than he gets credit for.
Yes.
Robertson's been a joker. He can do whatever you need him to do, and he's always available. And Te'o, I think he's a little bit, probably the least athletic of the 6, but still
solid.
He's a guy pre-snap that you like because he's a very smart, intellectual player on the field.
It's interesting because you mentioned them being interchangeable. That's one of the good things about this linebacking core. Even Anzalone was at the mic against Jacksonville, which is something I had not seen before.
I don't think I've seen that even in practice.
Right.
So that was surprising. I think Te'o was down that game,
yes,
so they
was.
had to. But hey, I don't think that's where he ends up.
No, but it
just goes to show you that they trust all 6 of these guys
right.
to do 6 different things, or to do all 3 different positions. Now I think Te'o will probably end up. I don't think he'll ever be a weak side. I think maybe you can play him at the Sam, but I think he's mostly a Mike. But the other guys, you can kind of flex around a little bit.
And I think we agree, Stupar's going to make this team, right? I mean, when you look at
provided he stays
teams,
healthy, I think
right.
there's a clear difference between him and the next linebacker that would make this team, say a Colton Jumper or even the J-Ron Elliott or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I would agree. And when you look at that, so let's shift back to the defensive backfield. Start with the safety position first. Von Bell, I would think he'd be a little bit further along by now. Especially now Kenny Vaccaro moving on. What's your take on how they're going to utilize the safeties?
Well, they want to use safeties. They want to, but they're not using, because we get lost in this 3 safety look. They do that, but they did that out of more of necessity the year they did it.
They didn't have the backers.
The nickel linebacker, the nickel cornerback essentially was Vaccaro.
Right, true.
They like to use, based on what I've seen, when they get a 2 tight end set, that's where they go with the 3 safety alignment, and I think that's a better matchup for a Von Bell than a slot wide receiver.
Do you find that he is a better player closer to the line of scrimmage.
He's a box guy. Yes, he's a box guy.
And a guy that can blitz.
He's a guy that he does a pretty good job blitzing. He's pretty good against the run. He's handsy in coverage.
Yes.
He doesn't track the ball all that well. Kurt Coleman and Marcus Williams certainly track the ball well, especially Williams. And then Chris Banjo is a guy that can special team and he can be your fourth safety. I think because to me, I look at the cornerbacks and I look at the safeties, and I would probably add a few more cornerbacks this year because I think it probably slants more towards them being that's their strength.
And you got Jamerson, if he makes the club, he is a tweener. So you could play him corner or safety if you needed to, right?
Him and Cameron Moore is a draft pick. I think has got an uphill battle to make this team. But Jamerson has gotten all cornerback reps, outside cornerback reps. He's got a few. I don't recall a lot of
because he played safety at Wisconsin as well.
Yes, but he's a really good special teams guy as well. I think corner is actually maybe the toughest cut based on the numbers because
go through it if you would.
You have your top three. You have your Lattimore, Crawley, Robinson, and then you kind of got does P.J. Williams make this team? I think he's got to get healthy, but I think he's definitely in the top six.
Yeah.
Does Arthur Millette, who's had a terrific camp, make this team?
On,
I think he's certainly got a shot. Natrell Jamerson, you just mentioned, and the guy I like, who was more than just a special teams guy, who's played well, is Justin Hardy. Do you keep 7? In my latest roster projection, I did because of the more of the special teamers being DBs.
How could you get rid of a Hardy, a Millette at this point, considering what they do for you in special teams and the possible upside of them in the defensive backfield? And the same would be said for Jamerson as well.
Yeah, but sometimes when that happens, though, it's not necessarily them. For instance, this injury to Okafor could complicate things at other positions because you may have to hold an extra spot.
Right.
Even if that player's only going to be there for the first 2 weeks of the season, you still got to hold that spot. So that's where it becomes a jigsaw puzzle that you got to kind of manipulate. And so that's where I could see it being an issue.
Yeah. And again, to me, and I've had in my notes here today, special teams battles seem to be the big battles right now, considering, again, you're pretty much set on offense and defense in terms of your starters. So guys that are going to make this team right now have to make an impact on special teams.
Yeah. 1 through 22, I can't recall there being this many knowns, essentially. There's no unknown. Like I said, the biggest unknown is where the linebackers will settle in.
Sure.
So that to me that's a check. That's a check mark. So now you're on to the next tier, and this is such a crazy year for special teams. A, the kickoff rule is new, but B, and I mean this, best special teamer on the team might be your third-string quarterback, and it's so rare to say.
Right.
But so there's all kind of these different factors that kind of go into how you kind of accumulate this roster, this 53-man roster.
Well, you brought him up, and you did a breakdown on Taysom Hill. Talk a little bit about Hill, the quarterback, and then kind of morph into Hill, the special teamer.
Okay. I know this is not an opinion not shared by everyone. I watched the game, and I saw a player that basically did exactly what I saw in practice. Guy that was quick to run, guy that was, uses athletic ability, But then went back and watched the tape, and I actually felt a little bit better about his performance because there were a couple of times he stayed in the pocket. Yeah. He let a third read develop over the middle. He made a nice, accurate throw. It wasn't perfect, but it was accurate. And I counted 26 snaps, 13 under center, 13 in shotgun. I counted there was 7 runs. 1 was a kneel, so 6 runs. 2 were by design, 2 best. The zone read where the entire Jacksonville defense crashed, and he was able to break a tackle, gain 21. And then the touchdown, read the play beautifully, took a hit on his throwing shoulder, which I did not like, but that's what you got to deal with, I guess. And then there were 4 where he took off and ran as a improv, and I felt like 2 were bad reads, 2 were good reads. So when I added it all up, it wasn't like he dropped and ran every single play.
Right.
He did it, and only on 2 times did I think it was the wrong decision.
Sean, I agree with you. First time around when I watched the game, I wasn't very impressed. I was more of like, okay, this is your typical backup quarterback, not really understanding what's going on. The game's going fast for him. 1 read, take off. The second time I watched the game, I like you, I saw maybe a little bit of a different player than maybe I saw the first. Yeah, I did too. Okay, now I want to see that go into the next game. I don't know. See, I think there's so many factors going against him. His age, 28. Breeze playing maybe 2 to 3 more years. I mean, are you really going to invest in a guy that may be 30 by the time he takes a chance to be able to be the heir apparent if he is? And then again, you mentioned he's one of your best special teams players. I mean, it's almost like you wish you could catch the football so you could put him in a wide receiver position, or you could play defensive back or safety. But I mean, he's a quarterback. So again, at least he has the ability in terms of holding for the place kicking, getting down on special teams, so that it's just not your third team quarterback that's going to be on the roster to be able to help you with the scout team, or again, emergency quarterback in case there's a problem on Sunday.
He's such an outlier as a player, though, and that's what Peyton is enamored with.
Yes.
You just don't see that. Even athletic quarterbacks, we've never seen them running down punts and kickoffs. I was standing next to Mike Westhoff on the sideline, and it was the punt right before halftime. Taysom Hill ran through a block and almost blocked the punt, and Mike Westhoff almost dropped his cane. I mean, he was very excited about it. And you watch him, and there's one of the runs that was an improv run where I thought was the right decision. He turns the corner on that defender. I mean, and it looked like the defender had the angle. But what I mean by that is the dude has got some athleticism.
Yes.
And if you can combine athleticism with patience, it's just a matter of how much are you willing to invest, because he still needs time to develop. Now, what I would love to see, and I hope this is the case, I want to see him with the first team this week, with most of the starters this week. I think he's earned that right, because I think he's shown enough in the pocket and enough from an athletic standpoint to at least see what he can do with the first team offense. We'll see if Drew plays, but even if he plays, it'll be 10, 12 snaps, if that. So I think that's the adjustment I want to see, because I want to see, to me, Tom Savage, you know what you have. He's got a guy, Deuce told me, he's a guy, he's got to love the route to throw it, because now he's checking it down. 9 of 12 was 80 yards. I don't know what it was. That's who he is. And but in Taysom's case, there's an intrigue, and you have to change what you do a little bit, but can he streamline his own play to where you don't have to change what you do a lot? And I think that's where the unknown comes in.
You don't see a scenario where Hill is the backup quarterback this year, do you?
Not yet. He'd have to really blow it away and over the next 3 games where he'd have to really jump a little bit in the learning curve. He has improved, but he was so far here. So now he's right here, but he probably has to get about right here to really and truly be the backup quarterback.
Do you see a scenario where maybe a quarterback from another team might be available?
I mean, who?
I'm going to throw Mike Glennon and Teddy Bridgewater out there. I'm going to throw those two names out there because they're in places where there's a little bit of a log jam of quarterbacks.
I can see a Teddy Bridgewater being a guy that the Jets maybe want to trade, because I feel like he's starter capable. And what do you want out of your backup? That's the thing you also have to realize.
But shouldn't you be grooming somebody at this point?
That's what I felt like.
Not grooming Tom Savage to be the...
Exactly. I mean, there's just so few Nick Foles out there where you can win a Super Bowl and have a magical run. It's what do you want out of your quarterback? Is he a developmental guy? Is he a guy waiting in the wings? Is he a guy that's basically a Luke McCown, that's a career backup, but you trust him if you got to throw him in there for a pinch, for 3 games, he can get you 2 wins. And a lot of people have asked me that, is the backup quarterback on this team? My question is who? Who do you get? Mike Glennon? Okay, yeah, he's a guy I know Sean Payton likes.
I watched him the other day with Arizona.
And he's played some football, so okay. But is it worth it? Is he that much better than Savage? Savage has got game time experience too, starter experience too. So I'm leaning towards the quarterbacks that are here are going to be the ones that remain here.
Okay. When you talk about the wide receiver position, I think the top 4 are set. Thomas, Ginn, Meredith, if he can get on the field. And
got back a little bit the other day at practice.
And Smith, who, again, looks like a terrific pick. For this team. I mean, I don't think we've scratched the surface on him yet. I saw him, in college, caught quite a few games that he played. I thought he was a terrific receiver there. He's a good blocker, got great hands. You see the catch radius now. Guy catches everything that comes his way. You mentioned from day one about what route you thought he would be perfect at, doing a lot of the things that Marcus Colson did, etc. Let's talk about the backups. Tommy Lee Lewis. You've got Austin Carr, who was kept on this roster last year. Kirkwood, who has turned some heads now, maybe a practice squad guy. Floyd and Tate, who, again, have just been brought in as veterans. How do you think that shakes out? Is it 5? Is it 4?
I think it's 5 if one's a returner. And that's why I think Brandon Tate has the lead, because he can make some plays on offense. And you saw what happened. And I want to say Taysom Hill had to keep locked to spring that return. Man, Austin Carr was one of the guys I had circled that guy's going to be somebody.
Why wouldn't you after last year?
He's just been MIA. He's just, I don't know if it's a situation. Mike Triplett and I were talking about this. He said, I'm not sure. He's had 5 targets all camp, practice.
Right.
other than individual drills. And I'm thinking to myself, is it a matter of they're not looking his way? Is he not getting separation? Because he looked to me to pick up where Willie Snead left off. He was going to be that guy.
That's what I thought.
And it just has not happened.
Who's that guy now?
I don't know.
Is it going to be Smith?
Smith is a more developed route tree than I originally thought, because you look at his stats, he was top 2 or 3 in yards per catch last year, and he runs a 4.4. You think he's just a straight 9 route guy, but he really can run the underneath routes with precision, knows where to be. He's having a little bit of trouble pre-snap alignment. I think that'll come. So right now, I think it's him, quite frankly. But I don't think that that's solely what he can do. I think he's a little bit more than that. But right now, I think it's him. But that's why I think right now for that 5th receiver, it's Brandon Tate. Kirkwood, to me, was really struggling the first 5 or 6 days of camp.
Right.
But has really picked up. He seems like the perfect practice squad guy right now. And the other ones you mentioned, Michael Floyd, I don't think he's in great shape right now. Okay. I don't think it's going to happen for him.
How about Tommy Lee Lewis? Again, a favorite of Peyton's. At this point, I mean, if you're not going to be the returner, you're probably not going to make the team.
You know, he has his moments where he just takes over practice, and he has his moments where he falls back down to earth, and he has his moments where he comes right back up, and then you watch him field a punt, and it's just never clean, and it's just, and it's like,
But then you see Brandon Tate.
That is and they're back to back when they do punt returns, and I'm looking, and it's like, boom, a bobble. I'm like, oh, make that catch, and you're on this roster.
Right.
Brandon Tate does it clean, and let's say you get a guy that can average 8.5 to 10 yards per punt return. Add that up over time, over a 16-game season. That could be the difference between hosting it throughout the playoffs and being a wild card team.
No doubt. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk about the running back position, backup offensive lineman, tight end, and we'll talk some LSU and Tulane. We'll be right back after these messages.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our host tonight, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. Sean, now let's jump into a few more position groups before we move on to LSU. Running back position. And, you know, you and I have talked about this all the time on and off the air. Just knowing Sean Payton, knowing the organization, would they go with a player that is a young player they can develop or a draft choice over a seasoned veteran that is a vested veteran that is going to, if that player is on the roster the first week, their contract is guaranteed for the full year, no matter whether they're with you the full year or not. You've got Jonathan Williams and Boston Scott versus Vereen and West, in my opinion, on who's going to make that team. What's your thoughts? You're there, you see him every day. I just feel like that, you know, when you look at the roster, yeah, Vereen's going to bring a lot to the table, but, you know, Boston Scott has upside. Jonathan Williams, to me, looks every bit as good as West. And, again, he's a young player, and you don't have to worry about that vested veteran contract situation. What do you think happens there?
I think Jonathan Williams has clearly stepped to the forefront of that race over Terrence West. You saw it in the game. You saw it this week in practice. There's a different look in his eye now. It's almost like, all right, I got it. And Sean Payton and Drew Brees both singled him out for pass protection, which is tops.
Yes.
It's one of the best things you can do in this offense. A running back that can pass protect, you're in. Vereen is good at that as well.
Yes. And he can catch the ball.
He can catch the ball in the backfield. Look, to me, this ball boils down to Boston Scott. To me, because I could see them going either way with him. Because I think he's a practice squad guy. I think he can be on the practice squad.
You think they could get him through?
I think they could get him through and get him on the practice squad. I'm not sure he had other teams had huge grades on him. I mean, he's 5'6", 5'7". But do you think enough of him to where he can contribute, or do you think enough of him to where you can sneak him through and get him back on the practice squad? There's a trust factor, and there's that style of back. Sean Love's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. You have Kamara. Ingram comes back after 4 games. For Ingram's role, I think right now it's Williams. Yeah. That's out of Williams or West.
Sure.
And I think that's going to go to Williams. Now, because I think West is kind of falling off a little bit. Now, Vereen versus Scott, if there's a way they can keep both, perhaps they do it. But we'll see. The guy that's kind of fallen off a little bit has been Edmonds, but he's a guy that's played special teams and he's played some fullbacks. So I don't know if maybe you find a role for him, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's interesting, again, with the Scott situation, you can have him on the roster the first week. Vereen's still out there, you get him week 2. And then you're not guaranteeing that salary for the rest of the year. And if you have to move him.
You play those games a lot in the NFL.
Oh, they do. I mean, you see it all the time.
It happens all the time. Cut down day. If you were on the final 53 on cut down day, it is the least secure day.
Right, exactly.
It is the most overrated. Right. Oh, I made the team. Because guess what? Right. By Tuesday, you could be gone.
Yes, you
or
could.
the following week, you could be gone.
And look, and in Scott's case, it might be easy to move him to the practice squad maybe a week later after the practice squads around the NFL are set. Because, teams don't want to let go of players that they've already invested in at that point. Backup offensive line. And I think that's going to be, we know the 5 that are set, that are the starters. You hope they're healthy. What do you think happens there?
Yeah, I think this is interesting because this is probably the biggest unknown in terms of quantity of players because Jermon Bushrod, I think he's got that 6th utility lineman, guard/tackle role set. Then you have, a Josh Larebius, a Rick Leonard, a Will Clapp, and a Cameron Tom, who's been back this week and getting second-team reps. Every one of those guys have something working in their favor, but they have something working against them. I think Josh Larebius, to me, is the one most ready to play, but obviously he's a vested veteran. They relied on him a lot last year, and he was productive. So there's a known there.
Right.
And the other 3, I think only one makes this roster, and the other 2 they're going to try to get the practice squad. It's either Cameron Tom, Will Clapp, or Rick Leonard. And Tom has been battling injuries. He's got to have a good camp from here on out, a good preseason. Rick Leonard, although I thought he played a little bit better in the game, the learning curve is pretty high for him. I thought Will Clapp's been the most consistent when it comes to his ability to play guard and center. They gave him a couple practices with the first team. He held his own against Sheldon Rankins and David Onyemata. So right now I'm leaning towards him. And depending on how the roster falls, is there a chance they keep 9? Maybe, but I think you'd rather just have 8. And right now it's out of Leonard, Clapp, or Cameron Tom. But the thing is, with Josh Larebius, he's that vested veteran. Yeah. You could try to sneak him through and could get him back by week 2 as well.
The problem with that is he's a utility guy, and teams need utility guys. And if you try to sneak Larebius out, you may have a chance that he gets picked up by another team.
Yeah, and also, if you let's just say something were to happen in week 1 to your center position, Bushrod can't play, which means you'd probably have to play either Clapp or Tom, whoever you pick. Out of that position. I mean, we're really getting down to the nitty-gritty there, but still, it's a scenario that could happen.
I keyed in on Clapp, and I felt like he belonged.
He's comfortable.
Okay.
I think he looks the part.
He
He's
really
in
does.
There. I know there's some talk about him. They want him to get a little stronger. I could see that. Perhaps he's a little bit light, but I think right now he's a guy that doesn't look like a fish out of water. Right. And when he gets beat, he hustles. It's not like he gives up on the play. Right. To me, that's 2 check marks.
Right. And it's not just because he went to Brother Martin and LSU.
I go by the tape, I promise.
It's not because you're a Brother Martin and an LSU graduate.
I go by the tape.
I know that. Tight end. Tell me what's going to happen at tight end. I mean, I think everybody believes Benjamin Watson is the starter.
I'm a little concerned.
Is Who-Man on the bubble right now to you?
I think he's been MIA. He was on PUP, comes back for 1 or 2 practices, been gone ever since. What he does, I mean, you can find that type of guy that can block. I mean, you have a guy like Garrett Griffin that can do that.
Yeah, and younger, upside.
I think Josh Hill is a guy he's solid.
Right.
I like Ben Watson, but he's 37 years old. I think he makes the team, but still, Dan Arnold to me has been the biggest guy in camp that he made you look.
Can he make the team?
That's it. He's forced himself into the conversation.
Now he's looks like a great practice squad guy to me. 1 more year, develop him on the practice squad. Next year, kind of like what they did with Griffin, right?
That's where I see him right now.
Right.
Let him blow up these next 3 games, and I think he inches towards, because you need a pass catching tight end.
Well,
a guy that can run the seam.
Right.
You need it. They missed that route for so long.
Who's the kid from Harvard they had a few years ago that's now with Tampa Bay?
Yeah, it's Brate, Cameron Brate.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, perfect example. Putting somebody out there and boom, they're gone.
Exactly.
Put him on the practice squad and he's done.
I think that he might be the toughest cut of camp to me because I think the coaches really like him. They didn't think he was going to be able to hold that kind of weight. He has.
Yes. And
he's getting better. He makes plays any chance he gets. So.
Right. All right. I want to go to LSU. Give me your bubble guys. Who's on the bubble right now?
Kikaha needs a big week. Really needs a big week. Al-Qadim Muhammad, Terrence West. I think Tom needs to get back and just kind of get back into the swing of things. Austin Carr is another guy. And those guys, I would have to say, are probably all on the outside looking in right now. So they need to really rise for the preseason.
All right, let's shift to LSU. You've been knee-deep in it this week. I don't think anybody should be surprised by what happened. Maybe surprised at the timing of what happened, but you knew that once the quarterbacks knew who was going to be in that pecking order, that either one or two were going to defect. Loyal Narcisse, Justin McMillan transfer. That leaves you with Joe Burrow, Miles Brennan, Andre Sale, and Jordan Loving, both walk-ons. Your thoughts?
Look, I go by the tape, okay? And none of these guys have significant tape on them. The best tape any of these guys have are their respective spring game performances. And when I watched Justin McMillan, I said, okay, that is as good as he will ever be. And to me, he is not a SEC quarterback. He is if you have him starting, something else went wrong elsewhere, and he is a 6-6, 5-7 quarterback. Doesn't shock me. And look, that's the best he will ever be. That's the highest point of his resume, and it was to me. I would have still went with Brendan after the spring game, quite frankly. Loyal Narcisse. Too many of his passes required extremely incredible catches by wide receivers. His accuracy, there is a baseline level of accuracy that even bad quarterbacks have, and I felt like he fell below that. Now, he's very intriguing because he is a smooth, graceful runner, and he's strong. I mean, he is a full-grown man. I mean, he's 6'2", 240. I mean, he is a dude that can – I understand why they had special packages in for him, and based on the sense you get, they kind of wanted him to stick around this year. And then, but in his case, to improve what he needs to improve, he probably needs to play a lot more. Yeah. But McMillan going wherever he goes, wish him the best. In Narcisse's case, he's going to go to this JUCO. Maybe he plays right away, and if he does, maybe he gets a little bit better. Reopens his recruitment. But there's no guarantee. Lindsey Scott is not even the guaranteed backup at Missouri right now.
He's third string.
He bombed his spring game at Missouri. So there's no guarantee. And then you go to new school, you don't know where you are. But look, it's a chance he's got to take. But, I've heard a little bit of panic. To me, you knew McMillan was gone. Right. Narcisse was 50-50 at best. And I think the two best quarterbacks are still on the roster. And I think you just roll with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get to Sale or Loving, season's over anyway. Right. Okay, if you got to go to your walk-ons. And the same would have been said, I would think, for Narcisse. See, the one thing about Narcisse that I didn't get, and maybe, look, he's a guy that says, I'm a quarterback, okay? With the problems that LSU has with the unknowns in terms of the running back position, this guy is an incredible, big dude, can run. Why you didn't put him at running back?
Well, he doesn't want to.
Okay, true,
but
agreed.
That's been bantered. That's been speculated about a lot because...
they don't have a bell cow.
The accuracy is really bad, and he's built for that pounding. He could take it.
I agree.
240, he could take it.
I mean, look at the kid at Tulane now. Okay, former quarterback Bradwell. He's going to be a guy that's going to be their top back this year. When you look at this offense, a lot of unknowns. I mean, what type of offense is it going to be? Nobody knows. Miami certainly doesn't know. I've said all along, I'm not announcing a starter.
Why would you? I hear that argument. I'm like, well, why?
Why?
Why would you? I mean, keep Miami guessing until the coin flip.
Exactly.
Why? I think they know inside. I mean, they know it's Burrow right now.
Sure, I think we all do. But Miami has to prepare for both. And what do you prepare from? Tape of Brennan in a couple games last year, and then maybe looking at the tape of a spring game at Ohio State, and then. How do you decipher what type of offense Ensminger's going to come up with?
Yeah, look, I think Ensminger wants to run kind of a bit of a pro-style system with some spread concepts. I think it's going to look a little bit like the Saints offense. Now, to be the Saints offense, it's always been my complaint when it comes to LSU. I think it's the biggest problem they have on offense. You got to work in some simple throws, some easy, high percentage throws. I mean, Drew Brees' completion percentage is what it is. He's deadly accurate, but there is a ton of throws that he's able to make in there because it gets him in rhythm very quickly. And if you want a rhythm timing game, because you got a boatload of receivers, granted they're unknown, but you just give them a chance, I think that's the way you got to go.
I think that's the deepest position on the team, receiver.
No, I think so, too.
And maybe one of the most talented on the offensive side. I think
I'll say
probably
this, though. It's time for some of these big guys to step up. I heard Steven Sullivan, Stephon Sullivan, move the tight end back, Drake Davis, D. Anderson, these guys that are 6'5" and above. It's their junior years. They've got to step up because now you're hearing Jamar Chase, Terrence Marshall, Jonathan Giles, and, Justin Jefferson. So it's time for some of those taller receivers to step up. It's there. It's just a matter of making it work.
It's a good problem to have. That's for sure. Let's take a couple phone calls. I want to get back to LSU in just a moment. Let's go to Toby in Gretna. Toby, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Yeah, how you doing? I'm hoping Steve Ensminger is not going to try and retire. He really didn't want to be offensive coordinator, and I think that set LSU back because they had to get Canada. Hopefully things are settled on that part, and I'll hang up and I'll thank you.
Yeah, Ensminger, I don't think he's retiring. I think he's
come on, he's an offensive coordinator.
This is what he wants to do. He got it at his dream school. He's doing it. I think this is a chance of a lifetime for him. And I thought that was the best thing I saw in the spring game was the mixing, matching of the personnel packages. And look, he couldn't run his offense in 2016, but he had a little rhythm as a play caller.
No, he did.
And look, you have your system. That's great. Game plan, that's great. But you got to find a rhythm as a play caller. That's what separates the great OCs from the average ones. That's what separates Sean Payton.
Sure.
Game day.
How big of a loss is Ed Ingram?
I think that's the biggest loss, honestly. Because now, it sounded like they didn't fully trust Cushenberry, so now you got to probably start him right now, roll the dice with that. I think that's the biggest loss, Ed Ingram, because he really came on last year as a true freshman, played well. He had him penciled in as a starter, and I think you're going to need an offensive line. You're going to have quality play out of your offensive line.
That one loss has, in your mind, I know how I feel about it. Has it gone from this offensive line being a strength to maybe an unknown now?
I still think it's if you were to kind of point the arrow good, bad, I still think it falls on good.
Okay.
I think the depth is better than last year. I think they have 12 scholarship linemen. You probably want to have – they probably want to be 14, 15. So now they have 12. I think you can survive Ed Ingram. You recruited a lot of blue chip offensive linemen, but you'd rather have them than not have them.
Well, I mean, look, you need a solid offensive line. You got to protect your two quarterbacks because you don't want to go to your walk-ons. B, at some point you're going to have to run the football effectively.
And I know that's an unknown. This is maybe the first year that I can remember you don't have that guy.
Yes.
And I think that'll probably force coaches to rely on their quarterback, trust their quarterback. Because I always felt like that was an underlying issue, too.
Yeah. The running back
when you had
was
the
so
running
good.
back so good,
Yes.
it was easy to trust them and take the ball out of the hands of your quarterback. And I think they're going to be forced, they're going to be forced to do that this year. But I also think someone will emerge as a running back.
Yeah.
They always do. Someone will emerge.
Back to the phone lines we go. Greg is in Houma. Greg, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Greg.
Hey, guys. I'm just kind of confused on the Taysom Hill deal. I mean, I don't understand why you would take a quarterback and put him on special teams, which is the most dangerous spot on the team, to get hurt. And let's just say he blows out the preseason and he blows right past Tom Savage. I mean, do you take him off of special teams so he doesn't get hurt and make him into the backup? I don't understand the logic, and I'll hang up and listen.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes.
Yes.
If he beats out Tom Savage, he will not be chasing down kickoffs.
Agreed.
It's that simple. That's why I still believe he's in third place. He's at the third string spot right here, and I think he's like I said, he's pretty good at it too. And I think he's become a guy that they've depended on in that role. So if he beats out Tom Savage, that no longer happens.
The thing is, it kind of goes against the history of this guy though, because he was often injured at BYU. I mean, he was a guy that ran a lot, got injured a lot. Now so far, I mean, but you got him on, as a gunner on special teams, trying to block punts. I mean, you put him in an awkward position. Those are positions where you get hurt at times. And now he's supposed to be your backup quarterback. Look, we've seen it. I mean, we saw it with Joe Theismann when he came into the league. Guido Merkins right here under Bum Phillips was a utility guy that played the quarterback position.
I think he's a guy that boils down to is this. He's, like I said, he's an enigma. He's an outlier.
Yes.
And Peyton's enamored. But if it works out, great. But if it doesn't, just draft the guy. I mean, that's just what it boils down to.
Right. Well, and
so
look,
he's willing to kind of play this game right now because he still has Drew playing.
Yes. And look, I think Drew can play a couple more years if he stays healthy. At least, we haven't seen a real decline yet. I mean, we know that a lot of times the bottom drops out on that when it happens. But up to this point, I mean, you've seen him in practice. I mean, no real loss of velocity on the ball, anything like that?
Drew is still going to be Drew.
There you go.
Drew is still going to be Drew. Yeah, and it's just you've always, and I'm not going to wood, you've beaten the odds when it comes to availability. To me, that's the best thing about him is how available he's been. I mean, even all the great ones have had issues.
Yeah,
so.
No doubt. Talk about the LSU defense.
Strength of the team. I think obviously everyone's worried about the cornerback position. I went through the roster. If you count Calvin Joseph, that's 5. But if you really kind of view him as a bit of a hybrid, it's 4. It's Alexander, John Cherry Kirkland, Greedy, and Kerry Vincent. So I think that's a concern. But maybe you have some guys that can give you some dual snaps. We'll see. Front 7, linebacker core, even with the what looks like a bad situation with the linebacker Taylor.
Yes.
Still think they're going to be fine in the front 7. That's going to be the strength of their team. When I was at the spring game, again, it's a spring game, but Kalavion Chason was the best player on the field by a mile. So you have edge pass rushers. You're deep at linebacker.
Gotta love Rashard Lawrence.
You love Rashard Lawrence, who's really him and Devin White aren't just the leader of the defense. They've kind of risen to that the leaders of that locker room. So I think they're in a decent spot. They always are when it comes to the front. So I think Aranda, for the first time in a while, is comfortable where he's at depth-wise and talent-wise.
And I hear they got the place-kicking job settled as well.
And look, that's why
Tracy?
That's why I haven't thrown the towel in as some of these guys have on this season. Because let's say they take a little dip offensively. Well, if your defense is as good and special teams-wise you're better, that can be the difference of a game or two. So that's why I still think 8 or 9 wins is a possibility.
Well, and look, and to me, I think early in the season they are going to be an enigma. They're going to be an unknown. Okay, and look, maybe by the time they get to Auburn's going to be prepared for them somewhat. But I think there's an opportunity for them to sneak up early, especially if they can look. I think there's a whole culture change on the way this team is looked at if they beat the University of Miami.
Beat Miami, and I'm saying the off season has been so many ups and downs and avenues and this team needs a season to start.
Yeah. Especially after what happened against Notre Dame in the bowl game.
The off-season storylines have just it's been so much. So this team needs a season opener. So. If you beat Miami, though, I think that could really unlock the potential because I think then mentally you kind of feel a little bit more confident about where you're going.
Under the radar right now, but I'm really excited about Tulane. I just think Willie Fritz has done a marvelous job in rebuilding that program. Now, again, injuries kind of piled up this week. Charles Jones, who, again, has the potential to play in the NFL. I don't know if he's reached his potential in college. I keep waiting for him to emerge. He's got all the measurables. He gets injured this week. He's probably out for the opener with an ankle sprain. That grad transfer, Freddie Canteen, who went to Michigan, ended up going to Notre Dame, coming in, had high hopes for him. He's gone for the season with a shoulder injury. But other than that, you got to like what Willie Fritz has done with this team. And look, I hate to say it, everybody says the same thing, but it's the truth. Everything kind of rides on the back of Jonathan Banks right now. And, of course, the defense continues to have to emerge. But I'm hearing good things about the running back position and also the wide receiver position right now.
The Bell Chase kid, Teron Alkalai. Yeah. When you have a quarterback, especially an experienced one, it's just the mood is just different. The vibe is just different. I think Willie Fritz has done a good job of restocking numbers, which is always an issue at Tulane. I think their conference schedule, it's going to be tough, but I still think they're capable of 6 or 7 wins, bowl eligibility. So you have reason to be optimistic uptown. Willie Fritz is 3rd year, so I think this is really his time to step up.
This is his team too.
This is his team. It's all his players.
Right.
It's a little bit like, because I'm really high on Nickel State this year as well.
Yes. When
you have the quarterback though, especially one that seems to have that it factor, everyone seems to gravitate to him. Look what happened at Nichols with Kendall Bussey transferring out of Texas A&M. Texas A&M to Nichols.
Yes.
And he was a 4-star recruit coming out of Newman. Right. So when you have the quarterback, it just sets the tone. And when you have that guy, it can really, it does works wonders for confidence.
What is it, week 2, Nichols versus Tulane, 4K versus Banks? Ought to be a good one.
Should be a good one. And Nichols has shown they are not afraid.
No, and look,
they play up.
Everyone I've had sitting in that chair that has talked about Nichols and Kansas are telling me they think Nichols got a good chance.
I think they can win.
They can win that game.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's head to the phone lines. Tom is in Metairie. Tom, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Tom.
Hey, guys. We don't want Mark Ingram out for 4 weeks, but if we get lucky enough to win 3 games and have a fresh Mark Ingram, that could be a real positive. And then I'd like to put you guys in the spot. Could you tell me your thoughts on the schedule for the Saints LSU? Where you think you're going to end up into the seasons? You guys have seen more than anybody else. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Is that for the record?
Record, yeah.
I think the Saints have a tough draw because they have first place schedule. They play in the NFC South, which to me is the toughest division in football, and they also have the AFC North, which I've said many times. Best Peyton's ever done is 2-2 against them. So that's why I think 11 or 12 wins. But if they dip below, you need to expect double-digit wins. This is a double-digit win team, and they remain healthy with key players. To me, anything below that is a disappointment.
Yeah, I think 10 or 11 is what I've said. It's just so tough. When they were the unknown last year, they're known now.
Playoffs is the floor, though.
Yeah.
To me, you got to be battling for.
I agree.
Home field advantage is the way to go with this team. I mean, nothing. When you leave it to chance on the road like that, crazy things happen. We saw it last year.
And I think for the Tigers, 7 or 8 wins is right where I think that they will be this year.
Look, I'm going 8-4 because I think they're going to win a game. People don't think they're going to win. They may slip up a game. But I think when you really look at the schedule and where they're at, and if they can have some sort of confidence within their offense, if they can turn the corner with their defense and hopefully better special teams, I think that could be the difference in a few games. Let
me throw you a wild card. Jahlil Okafor signs with the Pelicans. I love the signing. Your thoughts?
Love it. I mean, if you really look at it, it's kind of low risk and potentially high reward. So I like the signing this late in the process.
I like what Dell Demps, and look, everybody knows I'm not the biggest fan of what Dell Demps has done with this team, especially recently. I think over the last season or so, he has done a really good job. I love the Randall pick. I love the pickup of Randall, Peyton, and I think Okafor just kind of solidifies that. They've got to get a wing that can shoot. From what we understand, they're going to try to do that within the season now. But I like this squad.
I think the mojo switched. It all came back with that Nico Mirotic trade. I think it saved their season, and they've been riding that momentum ever since.
And I mean, look at it. I mean, look at the players they're bringing. These are lottery picks that they're getting on their second contract now. Randall, Peyton, Okafor. Obviously, when you look at Davis being a lottery pick as well, first pick in the draft, you're not talking about guys that again, weren't picked high and didn't have some success. Maybe, again, the fit wasn't there. I think the fit in this Gentry system could be really, really well for those guys.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how it all kind of shakes out. Your starting 5, who kind of ends up where. I think look, there's confidence around this team that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Definitely agree. He could talk it all, can't he? Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. You can also catch us statewide, 9 o'clock every Friday on Pelican Sports Television. Catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That is noon to 2 weekdays. Also, listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of the award-winning Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Check those out. We try to put those up as quickly as possible. And as always, want to thank our guest tonight, Sean Fazende, Fox 8 Sports, also the WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Trey Lopez, Naila Jones, and my director, William Hill. For Sean Fazende, I'm your host, Eric Asher. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.